this over here. That's a good idea. Light up some sage before we get started. I can get in here. Move my lighting around. Hey guys. I know this is, I always get in where I fit in. The camera's moving my... How's everybody doing? I don't really have a set schedule for going live. And sometimes it's actually easier than making a video. I don't have to worry about memory, editing, just shoot for it, Sometimes it's a little more productive, Lighting some sage up around here. Aw, just giving it a few moments before I really hop into the topic. But hey, Sierra and Suna Sadiq, Suzanne, Rochelle. So glad to have everyone in here. Make sure you hit the like button. It helps YouTube's algorithm push the content out. All right. Great ways to support. Always hit the like button. All right. Hey, Shauna, I don't want to mess up your name. This is Ms. Jones. I'm going to say Ms. Jones. Aw, Faith, hey. I know. I don't really have a set schedule for when I come on, Faith, so it's kind of like get in where you fit in. And it could be at different times, but, people are all different time zones. Watch the channel, so sometimes it works out for some and not for others, all right? But you guys see the title of the live chat, The Art of War. Where's my copy at? Oh, right here. By Sun Tzu. I don't know how many of you guys have read this book, but I am gradually putting together 50 books that I do advise survivors to read. The first book that I kind of got into was The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. So I do recommend that book as far as learning more about manipulative people, increasing your emotional maturity. So that is the point of all the books that I'm recommending to you guys. And there's so many pearls in this book. Like, it's hard to even read like 2 sentences without picking up information that you might find, noteworthy. So we're not going to read this book verbatim, and I'm thinking I will do 2 live chats on this book because it's so much information. I'm not even going to try to cram it into one, but I'm thinking 2 live chats would be sufficient to, at least just mention the points that I really want to mention out of the books, which isn't even going to be all of them because I would literally have to read like every sentence because it's all very good here. So this book was very good, Faith. Yep, Law of Attraction, the 48. Oh, is that a book that you're recommending, Faith? Laws of Attraction? So, because reading can be fundamental. Hey, Lighthouse. All right, so this book was written over 2,500 years ago, and it's basically Chinese military, considered a Chinese military text. All right, Sun Tzu. His name is pronounced like sun in a zoo, like we go to a zoo. That T must be silent, but he was basically a military commander, a strategist, a philosopher. All right, and these are his ideas on winning a war, basically. And there's 13 chapters in the book. All right, and each chapter represents or is basically focusing on a point of warfare. So, I find this all relevant to my channel because you are in a war, more spiritual than anything else, but it is an attack on you when you come into, the energy of a narcissist or a very toxic relationship. So understanding these tactics are very useful is going to be very useful and more than just, you know, the military. You can use this in business. People, I'm quite sure they use it in politics. Like, you know, just take what you can out of it and use it on your journey, if you will. And that's the aspect that I'm doing with this. All right. Karen says the secret and the power are great too. Mm-hmm. Faith said there are so many books for battles in mind. Yes. When we will expect your book about narcs. Well, honestly, I've written 4 books. I can write one that's more, you know, there's more books inside of me, and I do plan on doing more material, but I've already written 4. And I've done a little bit of material on them on the channel. And I do recommend that, you know, you guys, of course, check those out. They're going to be very helpful because they're more specific to narcissistic abuse. Shauna says, since tax season has come, I've been attacked it almost every week, and now I understand it's gaslighting. Yeah. Yes, I do believe in karma, Lighthouse. You know, it's more like a cause and effect. What goes around comes around. You do this, it leads to that eventually. I do believe in it. All right. So let's get into the book here. So like I said, there's 13 chapters. I'm not going to go through all 13 right now. I'll probably basically go through half of the chapters and point out some aspects that I would like for you guys to retain. So getting to these books should be pretty easy. You can go to your local library and get it for free, of course. I got mine at BJ's for $9.99. I was just checking out, and they had like a whole section of American classics. So I was like, let me grab it. And I basically have my own kids reading this book. So there's so many notes here, guys. So many notes. So let's just get started here. The thing that I have here written right here on the front page are basically what made Sun Tzu very successful was that he was considered unconventional in his time. And in my last video, when I talked about what the narcissist hates, you know what I said? Unpredictability. So him being unconventional made him unpredictable, of course. So the other side, or his opponents or his enemies, you know, they couldn't exactly, it's hard to defend against something you don't know which angle they're coming or what's going to be happening. So, you know, you could take a lesson out of his book as far as not being so predictable with people and with that narcissist. And you do the unpredictable by standing in your power ultimately and writing them off and you doing the final discard. And we're going to talk about this because this is actually a part of their tactics, which is putting people on defense. A lot of times survivors, you may find yourself always being on a defense. Like you're the one trying to respond or react to something that somebody dished on your plate. But actually, someone that's successful in winning the war, they learn to actually take the first move. It actually gives you more power. It gives you more control in dictating the direction of things. And you're keeping them busy in the ways that you want them to be rather than you reacting to their direction. So, you know, just something to think about. And something that I was definitely going to jump into in one of the chapters here, definitely spoke on that, and we'll be touching more on that coming up. So I'm just reading through my notes here. On the first page of notes here, I wrote, never interrupt your opponent when he's making a mistake. And this is also a pearl that I got out of this book. Never interrupt your opponent when he is making a mistake. You have to really think about that. So a lot of times we might want to interrupt the narcissist to let them know something, like, or to blow their spot. And I don't want to be jumping around, but in one of the other sections, which is the strategic attack, we learn how to keep secrecy, if you will. Like, you don't always have to know, let the left hand know what the right hand knows, okay? And I wish I could have added that in the video of manipulating the narcissist. You know, that's something that I would have said there. But, you know, sometimes, you ever hear the expression, we give somebody enough rope to hang themselves? Yeah. So sometimes when someone or your opponent, or basically it would be the narcissist, when they're making that mistake, we want to say, I got you so bad. But actually, we can mentally make a note of it and devise a plan on how we want to actually deal with it. And sometimes we'll let that narcissist think that we don't understand, or think that we don't see what they're doing, and it's actually giving us a strength at that point. It's making us stronger because they don't know that we know, you know. And that's actually a tactic in the book where you appear weaker than you are, and then when you strike out with full force, they weren't banking on it, and you're catching them off guard. You're putting them on the defense. All right. So the next thing I have on here is avoid what is strong and strike what is weak. This is another advice that's inside of the book here. And, you know, I'm taking all of this. Thank you, Aisha. She said I hid my cash and my guns. Yeah. Yeah, I did a video on Flashbacks Lighthouse, and that's a very popular video on my channel. So please go watch that video. Okay, this live chat isn't pertaining to that, but I have made a video for it, all right? All right, so, yeah, avoid what is strong and strike what is weak. So, you know, we could take a page out of the book as far as, you know, if the narcissist is a serial cheater, does that mean that's their strength, right? Their strength is in cheating on people. Does that mean that you need to then become a serial cheater? No, it doesn't mean that you have to join forces or be a tit for tat or try to match their strengths, because you might actually be weak in that area. It sounds like street cleaning is coming, which is very noisy. Very noisy. But attack what's weak about it, you know? So if we think about what their weakness is, that's what we're going to want to attack with them. And their weakness would be what they want from you, basically. The supply that they're seeking from you, that's a part of their weakness. Their emotional immaturity is a part of their weakness. The mask and what's behind the mask, that's a part of their weakness, what's behind the mask. So, aw, you're welcome, Daryl. You know, it's just really about increasing that emotional maturity. You know, I used to be that naive person. I really did. And my last video was about the clap back, meaning learning how to be silent with the narcissist. And I could really connect that to this book right now, because one of the advices is to break the enemy's resistance without fighting, or try really hard to do the least amount of work, because you're basically going to be exhausting yourself, which isn't smart. So you're going to avoid unnecessary efforts or using unnecessary resources. And that speaks to working smart and not harder. All right. So does that mean repeating yourself over and over to tell someone about your boundaries? are basically, the book says, in war, we should be sharp and quick, not something drawn out, not something repetitive. You know, successful generals are sharp and quick. You know, assertive and to the point is how we could look at that. Assertive and to the point. And then their advice is, if that person, well, this is more about manipulation in this one. If they're trying to be arrogant, appear to be weak. You know, you don't have to have the last word. You don't have to have the last word. You don't have to curse them back out. All right. And then some of these tactics, guys, you can see where the narcissist was using it on you. All right. Like one of the tactics here, separate their united forces, where they try to pull you away from your support system, where they do the smear campaigns and such. You know, these are war tactics. And this is something I said in my other video as well. Exploit their weaknesses and you'll never lose. You know, somebody asked me, how do you manipulate an narc? Which, you know, I don't condone the energy towards that per se, but exploit their weaknesses, because that's what they're doing to us. And basically, the narcissist you might find attacks you where you're unprepared. And that is a good war strategy. And that's what you should be doing towards them when you're doing that no contact or final discard and breaking away. But in order for you to even have an attack, guys, and the book says this, and I say this over and over, you have to know yourself and know the enemy. You know, that's why learning about a narcissist and how they move in their manipulative tactics, arming yourself with the information from books like these, you know, it's going to strengthen your mind, and it's going to allow you to be able to see angles. It's going to allow you to be able to move in a more intelligent way, emotionally intelligent way. Because if you don't, guys, you're going to hurt yourself trying to hurt them, because you won't have that intellect, or you won't be seeing the angles to see, okay, if I do this, yeah, it's going to hurt them, but it's going to hurt me too. See, the narcissist, you know, slights their face all the time. And they don't mind. They're actually so ignorant. They don't mind slighting your face a little, sliding their face a lot just to slight your face a little bit. You know, that's what they'll do. All right. So basically, when we're talking about breaking resistance without fighting, we're saying to outthink versus outfight the enemy. How much more energy are we going to use, you know, fighting them physically as opposed to mentally? And when I say physically, it's more like repetitive toxic behaviors and going through cycles of abuse, which really isn't fighting to me. That's succumbing to your enemy, is being held hostage. They've got you. They've sieged you at that point. So we want to outthink the narcissist, all right? And pay attention to details, all right? Because a lot of times we're not able to pay attention to details if we're stuck on our own agendas too much that we can't even see what our opponent is throwing at us. And that's when we put on those rosy colored sunglasses during a love bomb phase, for instance. So hopefully nobody will be able to really come and love bomb you guys in a certain sense. All right. So I want you guys to be mindful about that. So in the book, they talk about laying a plan. And all of these chapters are interconnected with each other. And I wonder if I have a moderator on here. Anybody that can be a moderator. I should have asked that early on, because I'm not even used to doing it. You know, just in case a troll comes on here and starts talking crazy. Anybody want to be a moderator? Yes, Larry. I'm reading your comment, Daryl. He says it's been a challenge to move forward. I stayed in it longer than I should have, believing that my wife could change through the power of God. Yeah. And don't beat yourself up for that, Daryl Riley, because marriage should be taken serious and divorce should be a last resort. I do advocate that. So a lot of times once we marry, that toxic person or someone that God didn't actually ordain for us, we really try everything that we can because it is marriage and marriage is sacred. But you get to a certain point when you realize you're in that marriage by yourself and that person really hasn't joined with you in the spirit, and when they haven't joined with you in the spirit, you really don't have much of a marriage at that point. And it's going to run its course because God never ordained it. Yes, it is like a drug. And I have videos that talk about, what that does to our mental here. All right. All right. So in the book, it does talk about laying plans, guys. But again, like I was just saying, to be able to lay a plan, you need to understand who you're dealing with. You need to understand yourself. You need to understand your resources or your strong points and theirs, your weaknesses and theirs. So in order to lay a plan, you can't be blindly following someone else's plan. So that's something else that the book points out. In order to be a planner, you actually have to be an individual, if you will. And I'm trying to break, all of these thoughts and ideas and concepts down into the most simplest common denominator that anybody could pretty much understand in layman terms, and also trying to make it as relevant as I can to narcissistic abuse and psychology, if you will. But yeah, you don't want to blindly follow others. So also being able to lay plans means being able to see angles and think ahead. Because in the book it does say you win the war before it begins. And this is good, and that means you think a situation out. And that means that sometimes you may have to consider the unlikable or unfavorable aspects to a decision, because every decision we make has pros and cons. We want to always think for the best, all right? And there's nothing wrong with thinking for the best, but my motto is more so I hope for the best and I've at least considered and planned for the worst. I'm thinking of as many angles as I can, and even if I don't want, it to go down a certain situation, I'm not going to be devastated or blindsided by it because I gave it the benefit of the doubt, or I was naive in thinking that it could never happen. And for those of you joining into the chat, I do ask that everyone try to hit that like button. Let me see that you're in the building here. I see people watching. Please hit the like button. All right. So being able to lay a plan means to be able to consider the good and the bad. All right. The good and the bad. That means, all right, I'm getting in this relationship. This person is really into me. You might feel that right away. This is called the love bomb. So in other videos, I say where, I can enjoy the experience without getting carried away. Well, let's see how this unfolds. We had a really nice evening together. I hope it continues. Or, I need to really make sure this person is being sincere. It seems nice. They seem genuine. Let me give it a little bit more time. Let me cross check them, and meaning make sure they're being honest with me. I'm not going to just get swept off my feet with a compliment or a good date, or just because, oh, I finally found someone that, seems to have it all together. But honestly, when things seem too perfect, that should be a red flag as well. Like, no one's perfect. If someone's presenting themselves too perfect, we have to let that be a red flag instead of thinking, oh my God, like my knight in shining armor. There's no perfect person, okay? So being able to lay a plan. And this also goes for not only just embarking on a relationship, but even exiting a relationship. You could lay a plan to break up with this narcissist, be like, you know what, I figured it out. Now, what's going to be my best course of action to break away from this person? And I was going to talk about this further down, so I don't think I have to mention it here. But yeah, laying plans is just really seeing those angles, the good and the bad, guys. All right, the good and the bad. All right, so the next thing that they talk about is actually the waging of a war, because after you lay out the plan, the next thing you want to do is to take action. You're going to be taking action next. So in waging the war, we have to be mindful about our resources and our exhausting our strength. All right. And the main thing that they talk about in this section is lengthy campaigns will wear you out. So, you know, we could just go ahead and say lengthy campaigns would be staying in a cycle of abuse over and over. You know, staying on the battlefield with the narcissist is going to wear you out. War has a cost. Staying in those toxic situations, staying on the battlefield, it has a cost. Your peace of mind could be financial, you know, time that you'll never get back, resources that they steal from you, and then your sheer physical strength and your mental strength, everything gets weakened as you stay in this situation. Hold on a second. Yeah, so you know, it's kind of like going back and forth with the narcissist over and over, back and forth into court. And, you know, all the fees that you're paying on a lawyer, and you're losing that much more resources. Or, you know, when they broke your boundary the first time and you didn't just be short and sharp and cut it off then, and here you are on 1,000th time telling them. How much more time and energy did you spend with them? How much more did you allow them to penetrate into your life? How much more did you give them? How much more weary and tired are you at that point? So, you know, then basically they literally said your treasure is spent, your strength is exhausted, you know, and you're delaying, you're causing delays. So we want to be mindful of that, guys. All right. So thank you. Someone gave me those roses this morning, Aisha. All right. So number 3 here, they talk about a strategic attack. And they're all going to sound like they're kind of running into each other because, you know, it's all connected. Laying a plan, waging the war, being strategic about it. So let's just talk about some of the things that Sun Tzu said. To have full knowledge versus weak knowledge. You know, that means jumping to conclusions, making assumptions, guys. It's not going to take you very far. All right. And then it's talking about capturing versus destroy in this chapter. And that means, you know, destroying takes a lot more energy than just capturing something. Now, the narcissists, they try to take this technique where they're capturing you, and they're slowly destroying you by capturing you. Okay. So, and this strategic attack also talks about knowing when to fight and when not to fight. And it's picking our battles. Just like I said in my last video, you know, sometimes you don't have to clap back. Sometimes you don't have to say anything to them. It doesn't require that kind of response. And silence can be an adequate tactic. And then if you do have to actually take an action, you want to pick the right time and the right location. Okay? And know how to handle superior and inferior forces. All right? If you feel like that narcissist has more resources than you financially, for instance, you know that you want to be dotting your I's and crossing your T's with them. Then if you feel like, you have more resources, or, you have, you're in a stronger position, you know that you'll be outsmarting them. And the right time and the location, I wanted to stay on that because sometimes we live with the narcissist or something like that. If it's actually their house and stuff like that, and you're trying to save money to move away, your strategy or being strategic would be playing dumb, playing weak while you're silently gathering your coins, making your plan of escape, if you will. So then it will be the right time and location to do it when you're on a strong foot, if you can. Of course, if it's situations where there's physical abuse, you may not be able to play it that way. And there are resources out there for people, shelters and safe houses. And maybe you might have family and friends. Maybe you might have to swallow your pride, but that's going to save your life and keep you safe. So, it's really using your common sense in those situations. Yeah, yeah, it'll reload. It'll definitely reload. All right. So I want to go into the fourth area, which is tactical dispositions. And this is the way that it sounds, like a tactic or a strategy, and positioning yourself. And the first thing I have on here that I got out of the book was put yourself beyond the point of defeat. That means, from day one, is your way, is your rules, is your boundaries, is your standard. And either way you slice the pie, because you commanded respect, because you didn't settle or do anything that you didn't want to do, you're beyond the point of defeat. Like, even if it doesn't work out, it's like, okay, it didn't work out, but you didn't take my self-respect. You didn't walk all over me. I didn't put myself in a position where I'm going to be the tail and not the head. I made sure whatever I was doing with you, I was in a position of strength, during that interaction. All right. And then under that, you're basically securing yourself. Okay. All right. And then in this particular section, it talks about letting the other person hand you the defeat, meaning let them hang themselves, let them do the dishonorable things, let them, let them slip their mask. At that point, they've defeated themselves, because then you're not going to be with them. They've lost the war. They've lost you. All right. And that takes knowing how to push your will and what you want and deflect and block theirs. And a lot of survivors have a hard time with that because of codependency. We enmesh, we take other people's opinions and thoughts, and we take it personally. It's just knowing the difference also between defense and offense. All right. Because they're putting you on the defense when their opinion matters more, when you are letting them do something and not saying, okay, well, I'm going to do this to shift this back over here, or not put yourself in a position where you're constantly on the defense, basically. Because being on the offense makes you the stronger person. And I talked about this earlier, where I said we were going to mention it again, but it lets you be in control of the direction. So, you know, while they're trying to all right, let me do this because this person needs to be blocked. Hide user. They be like, you could put the user on timeout or hide the user. No, we're hiding. I don't play games on my channel, by the way. I'm not here to push any messages down anybody's throats. You know, if you want to come through, if you think it's valuable, you know, you want to take information to help you on your journey, that's good. But I am definitely not here to push anything down anybody's throat or to let someone come on a channel and talk foolishness, be immature and ignorant. You're going to get blocked. You're not going to be put on a timeout. You're going to get permanently blocked from the channel. Permanently blocked. All right, so I want you guys to understand that it's good to take the offense. That means taking control of a situation. And we talked about that in the beginning of the video. That's making the first move. A lot of times survivors are like, I'm waiting for the final discard. Like, you're in control of the final discard, not them. They're going to just keep going over and over, chances are. Actually, the survivor is in control of the final discard. What are you waiting for? You already know what you're dealing with. So making that first move puts them on the defense. And it puts you in control. All right. But the good thing with this one that I really liked is let them defeat themselves. Because, you know, the mask drops. And once you see it, just see it at that point. If you just let yourself see it, they've done the work for you. And played themselves because they tried to pretend like they weren't that. They actually end up playing themselves, all right? So in the fifth section, they're talking about the use of energy, and that's really, really important, guys. The use of energy, all right? So in the book, it talks about how you can use your energy either in a direct format or indirect to confuse basically your opponent or confuse your enemy. And basically, they use the whole model of a defeated warrior goes to war first and then seeks to win. A victorious warrior wins first and then goes to the war. That means they have all their ducks in a row. They've considered all of the tactics. And as far as using either direct or indirect energy, you know, it could go back and forth. It doesn't have to always be direct. It doesn't have to always be indirect. I mean, I think at first we start out being very direct with people and we tell them what they need to know. And then when they don't listen, just like on this thread right here, I'll give a warning, hey, you know, this isn't the place for that. They do it, they just get blocked. I blocked them. I didn't say anything, but they're getting blocked. That might feel indirect because I didn't tell them why they're getting blocked, but I did earlier. They made a choice, so now they get blocked. You know, that's like a really small example of that. That's why, you know, and that you don't owe them the closure. The closure, they should already know. And if they don't know, it's not on your watch for them to figure it out, right? But indirect tactics can be useful. You know, and that's when you may seem like you're talking in a circle, or maybe you're not directly talking to them. You might say, you know, I really don't like it when people aren't honest with me. I really don't like it. You might say people is indirect, but you're saying it to the narcissist that you know who's lying. So, you know, when people are like that, I just never talk to them again. You say that to them and then you never talk to them again. It was like indirect, but it's, you told them. You told them. You told them and it happened, you know. You know, sometimes you don't have to strike at someone in the most direct fashion. You could just unfriend them on Facebook. You know, you could block them on Facebook, and then they say that they see they don't have access to your profile anymore. Let them put one and one together for once. I'm serious. We have enough to do. So in this section, it also talks about being willing to adjust, you know, and that's adjust being direct or indirect as needed, depending on your target. So, and it also warns against being overconfident or overly confident, and how that's usually a lack of, usually their lack of having a lack of preparation with that. And then it also says chaos is a loss of control. And we know the narcissist is full of chaos, while its control indicates skill, indicates organization. All right. But I found this really interesting in this same section. And it says the clever combatant looks to affect the combined energy and does not require too much from individuals. This reminds me of the narcissist, because they think they're clever, right? And it works for them, at least in a temporary, or they have to keep mixing the energy by one energy leaving when people discard them, or they have to discard and putting another energy there. But they want a whole bunch of supply, and they're usually not expecting that much from any one individual except for the primary source. And then you just have the monster of a narcissist who do expect the most while they're given the least, if anything at all. And then they still have a whole bunch of energy. They just want all of the energy. But it reminded me of them, because this person is basically, you know, not putting too much on any one person. But, you know, sometimes the codependent is doing that too when they're making other people responsible for their happiness. We lose the war that way. The war, we lose, you know, out on having a healthy relationship when we do that. Jada, just take them downstairs. The twins, they want to come in here. Well, you can forget about this chat if they do. Aw. Yes, you are, Karen. You're very right. All right, so the next part of the book talks about having weak points versus strong points. And basically knowing your weak points and your strong points. So it's all connected, because we mentioned this a little bit in the beginning. And it's insinuating that the first person on the field has the upper hand. They're fresh for the fight. They're able to scope out the area. They're able to combat other people as they come onto the scene. And, you know, the narcissist tries to do this. They try to stay steps ahead, you know, with the smear campaign and getting the people first. All right. And they said the second person will arrive exhausted, and that's usually the unsuspecting codependent or other person in the toxic relationship with that con artist, and, you know, that didn't know any better. So this chapter always says, also says to start early to increase your chance of success. And that goes along with being first on the field. But if you start early with enforcing your boundaries, start early with showing people what's acceptable and how they can treat you, it increases your chance of success. And if you don't have it with that person, it still increases your chance of success, because now you're number 5, you're using your energy better, because now you can get rid of that person and move on. All right. So another part of this, knowing the weak and the strong, is impose your will, but don't allow the enemy to impose their will on you. All right. That's very important, guys. Impose your will, but don't allow the enemy to impose their will on you. That means that we have to be strong in our convictions, strong in, how we want to lead our life and what we want to accept. And, keeping in mind, as I said a couple of modules ago, basically, when you act first, it's on your terms and you put them on the defense. And hold your advantages. I mean, don't run your mouth about everything you have and all your strengths and let them proceed blindly. And this is what the narcissist is actually doing, because they're putting that mask on. They're holding their advantages behind the mask. And they're pretending to have other advantages. They're letting you proceed blindly, and bam, they're attacking. The mask falls, and then you find out what you really have. So we have to learn the art of secrecy at that point, and I said that a little bit in the beginning, not letting the left hand know what the right hand is doing, learning how to move in silence, not telling your next move, even out of anger. Like, that's why I'm never going to talk to you again. Like, what if you just never talked to him again and didn't say it? That's why I'm blocking you tonight from Facebook. Or that's why I'm going to move. Is when sometimes we do it out of anger, but we tell our next plan. So learning the art of secrecy in military time, it would have been like using like camouflage, to try to conceal their movements in the forest or whatever. All right, so I thought this was really cool in this section, so I want to repeat that. And it says, an army may march a great distance without distress if it marches through the countryside where the enemy is not. I'm going to say that again. An army may march a great distance without distress if it marches through the countryside where the enemy is not. A lot of times we're hitting our heads up against the wall in direct conflict with the narcissist instead of removing the problem, which is the narcissist. We're trying to prove something to them. We're trying to convince them of something. Or we're going to their friends and family to defend the smear campaign. We're marching through the countryside where they are. And that's why we're going to have stress. But if we're going where the enemy is not, we'll be going further in life. We'll be going further in life, guys. We can go a great distance without them. And another way that we can relate this to something modern, if you're living up under the roof with the narcissist and things like that, you're on their countryside. So you're going to have to figure a way out of that. Because it's going to be limiting you. It's going to be limiting you. We have to get off of their countryside. We need to be on our own playing field, guys. Our own rules. Hold on a minute. I have these like notifications coming through that I want to get rid of. So, and then when we're on their countryside, guys, we have to have constant readiness. We have to have extra caution. That makes you weary. That makes you tired. And you're constantly on the lookout for something. That puts you on the defense. That makes them more powerful, guys. All right. So another thing this section talks about is attack where it's not being defended or guarded, or where you perceive is more of a weakness. All right. And that's what the narcissist will do to you, and you could actually do to them. But they know what your supply is or what you want out of the situation, or if they feel like, your weakness is your body image, I'm going to attack you there. And just learning in life how to attack them there. If they're social media kings and queens, block them, Or act like you don't care. Oh, you made a post? I never even seen it. Like, you know, they're attention whores. It's just knowing. Just knowing. So, and then the other part on here, it says learn how to attack in other places to pull them out. That's like saying the narcissist tries to attack you on your weight. You could point out the bigger picture on how tacky that is. Wow, that's really immature and tacky. You know, is learning how to attack them in other places when they try to attack you in one place. And I don't want that to really turn into a tennis match, because you could really say that and then cut them off at their necks. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to deal with you anymore. You're dismissed. Don't ever talk to me again. You know, they're not going to be expecting that. Like, oh, you didn't just get hurt. That didn't make you go in the corner and cry my words and opinions. You know, that's how you can be sharp and quick with defending it or beating them. All right. So they're not going to be expecting that, especially if they pegged you as some little marshmallow that hangs on to every one of their words, that's needy for their relationship, can't live without them. And, you know, they're overly confident, and that's actually how you could always win the war against them. All right. But this is a great book, guys. This is a great book. That's like halfway through. And I've printed something else out. Let me see if that printout has some things that I didn't mention. All right, let me see. It might have a few things on here that I didn't mention. Choosing your battles, we talked about that. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to. We did mention that. Timing is essential. We talked about the right time and the right location. But the quote from the book that they put was, the quality of decision, all right, is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Okay. We talked about knowing yourself and knowing your enemy, because if you don't, guys, you will slight yourself while slighting them, okay? Doesn't mean that you won't win an attack on them, but what will the attack cause you, and how will you hurt yourself in the meanwhile, or as you bring that into fruition? And for those of you coming in, make sure you hit the like button. Have a unique plan. We talked about that being unpredictable, because the book says all warfare is based on deception. Disguise your plans. We talked about that, not letting the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. So far, I've hit all of these already. The best way to win is to not fight at all. Silence is golden, and I talk about that a lot on here. And this is also the section where I was saying, don't do anything unnecessary, you know? If you don't have to, don't. Because then it's like an overkill. And it's doing the most, and that speaks to someone who isn't really over a situation, if you will. Well, here's something. It says change represents opportunity, and we already know that on this channel. And in the midst of chaos, there is opportunity. Yeah, there's an opportunity to take your lessons, guys. There's an opportunity to shift the directions. Okay, we're in chaos right now, so something has to change. The strategy has to change, you know. Something has to change in this situation. So yes, change is very probable in the midst of chaos. No one profits from prolonged war. So that, you know, is about the use of your energy, is about the time invested, guys. The resources. So we went through all of those already. We went through all of those. It is. It is face silence. Really is. Yeah. Ultimately, you do want to stay away from them. But I know that some people, aw, thank you, Keith Johnson. I know that some people, you know, have to co-parent with a narcissist, and they may not be exactly in a position where they can just go no contact and not have any type of interactions at all. So, you know, at least having some type of strategies or tactics that will keep or give you the upper hand, if you will, is definitely, you know, what you want to be doing. All right. So, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. This is our part 1 live chat on it, where we just went through about half of the book. Here, pointing out some strategies and tactics recommended by the book. And, you know, reading can be fundamental, guys. So I do highly recommend that you guys check it out. I mean, you're going to learn more about manipulative people, and you're going to actually see, once you get this type of information, you'll be able to see where all type of people around you are making power moves. They're utilizing these type of tactics. It doesn't have to all be negative. I mean, you could utilize this, like I said, to help yourself in life, you know. And it's all increasing your emotional maturity. No. Shauna's right. Don't worry about helping the narcissist. You can't help them. The whole point of this is for you to be helping yourself. Who's talking about helping the narcissist? And I do need a moderator here. But while I have a moment, I'm just going through the comments here. I do want to thank everybody for the support that you guys give here on the channel. And hey, Maggie McMaster. Thank you, Marge. I got those roses last night. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a horrible thing, Tracy. She discovered that her boss is a narcissist. Like I said, there's a lot of power moves and plays that you can do, you know. And especially in corporate America, you're going to see narcissists everywhere. Hey, Daryl, maybe your divorce hasn't been that long, and maybe that's why it's still emotionally hard for you. Aw, you guys left a lot of great messages here. I'm just going to the bottom. Hey, from Panama. All right, guys. Well, I wanted to hop on here and just talk about this. The first book that I did was the 48 Laws of Power, and there is a playlist for the 48 Laws of Power. I'm going to make a playlist for this book, and then I'll make an ultimate book playlist for all of the books in case, you know. Yeah, yeah, it is. But this one's really good too, guys. That's why it's number 2 on my list for you guys to read after 48 Laws of Power. All right. So I hope that this is helpful to someone. And if you've never heard of this book, I highly recommend it. Simready, you're welcome. And it's K-I-A for the spelling. Thank you guys all for tuning in. I'm not sure when I'll do the part 2 to this. You know, I'm kind of swamped in summaries and everything. So if you're waiting for a summary from me, I'm going to be working on that. Just be very patient. They take a lot of time and effort, and it's really easy for me to get backed up in them. Along with that, I could say that I do have the support group over on Facebook, guys, for survivors of narcissistic abuse. That link is below all of my videos. I do one-on-one coaching, guys, to help people heal from narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships, help them do the shadow work with their inner child, work on goals, spiritual cleanses, all of these things. I do help people with that. You can go on my website, lakiacrawford.com, to find out information about that. I have written my own books, guys, and I highly recommend it, especially for the survivors of narcissistic abuse. The X Factor Volume 1, The X Factor Volume 2, The Beauty of the Eye, and then Silent Tears for those of you who have experienced sexual abuse. I highly recommend that book, therapeutic book that you can do in private. They're available on ebook and hard copy on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles. All right, I have the No Narc Zone merchandise, guys, on my website. Cute t-shirts and hats, your statement against narcissistic abuse. I have a Patreon, guys, with monthly memberships where you can get further access to me. You can go over on Patreon and see what that looks like and see if it's something that you're interested in. It's a great way to support the channel and actually get more services from me as well. With that being said, guys, as I say at the end of all of my videos and uploads, you know, keep doing the work, continue to increase your emotional maturity. Let's continue to step out of resistance, open our minds and see the angles in life, right? Let's get stronger in our self-awareness and our self-confidence. Let's get stronger in our boundaries, all right? And unapologetically, how about that? All right. And with that being said, guys, until next time, please take care.